So, Alicia, generally what we'll do is, in this section, is we'll each have ideas that we'll bring to the table and then we'll discuss them. But for our inaugural episode, we've already decided on one beforehand.
Yes.
Would you like to introduce it?
I suppose so. Yeah. So I think our beginning concept for this was pretty much big trees.
Big trees.
Big trees. But like really big trees?
Yes. We're thinking ridiculously sort of... Well,
So
I think we wanted to start with familiar ground, so we wanted to go with a fantasy sort of genre for this first world.
I'm personally picturing a particularly large ancient forest where the trees are so big that the civilizations that live on their branches have never seen the bottom and have never seen the top.
Yeah. Like an eternal... in D&D, they have the idea of like the eternal planes, elemental planes, because there's the elemental planes and then there's like in some planescapes you have the eternal elemental planes or the infinite. So there's the infinite plane of water, which is just bottomless, topless.
That is terrifying.
I know, isn't it? It's the worst.
Yeah.
But it's the infinite plane of trees. Except they're not infinite, they're just very, very large.
They're just very, very big. So I think we're going to kind of discuss the kinds of people that would live in this forest.
Okay.
And I also have a bit of a theory as to how it came about.
Oh.
Which we can probably talk about.
Origin myth. Okay,
Should we
cool.
start with that? Or should we start with the people?
If you have an idea, I think that is a cool
I have
thing to start
ideas
with.
for both. Okay, so we chatted very, very briefly about this idea when I first proposed it. And you said that you think there'd be normal sized trees as well.
Yes.
Which says to me that this is probably some specific species of tree that is doing this to be able to have that distinction.
We learned about the Pacific redwood the other day, which is the biggest tree on Earth.
Yes.
I feel like some redwood is a nice aesthetic, like this red bark and deep red wood.
I was thinking that perhaps this is some kind of magical species of tree that has been introduced. So I picture that this world itself has a very magical core to it, and this species was introduced, and this particular species of tree can feed off that magical energy, unlike the original plants can, and so they've just grown absolutely massive.
That ties in really well to, I was talking earlier, because we've tried not to discuss it too much, but I had an idea for the magic system being very tree-based.
Yes.
So like all of it is very... like practical hands-on magic, like how witchcraft requires poultices and ingredients and stuff. It's all different aspects of the tree.
Yeah, I like that.
The tree produces maybe a multitude of fruits, and you can use the bark and the wood and stuff, and like oil from it and stuff like that in all these different parts to make the spell unguents or whatever.
Yeah, cool. I like that.
Okay, so magical trees feeding off of the sort of source core.
Well, yeah, pretty much. So I think at some point, probably not today, we'll figure out the actual process as to how this forest got started.
Yep.
But that's my theory so far, that it was some kind of introduced species. Because I think
we have a sort of before state as something that we can...
And I don't think the entire world is like this, because I think I just like to have lots of variations on a world. And
it means that we can explore more than one story in this setting. And we can explore the interaction between multiple sort of ideas. Yeah. I think talking about inspirations can be good. Like one thing that I'm drawing from is something that I would need to show you still is Nausicaa or Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, which is a inverted commas Studio Ghibli movie.
Cool.
Yeah. So the idea there is they have the big toxic forest, and then there's like the toxic jungle, and then there's people living outside of it who like venture in and stuff like that, and the forest is like spreading out.
Cool.
It's sort of but this is, I think, a less malignant force, this forest. Like, it's definitely an invasive species.
It is, but I think that was introduced. It's not necessarily a negative impact on the ecosystem.
People can still live there.
Yeah, definitely. And like the rest of the environment is kind of adapted to this new species. So
I assume it wasn't a peaceful adaptation, but that's
probably not.
a
But
period we can explore.
I get the feeling this has been like this for a while now.
Yes.
Especially if we're talking about entire societies and civilizations living in this forest.
Yeah.
To the point where they don't even know what's on the forest floor or above the canopy. Exactly. They've probably been there for a while.
I think that what we'll mostly be exploring is this group of societies living in the trees who have they have no concept of the history before or anything outside of that.
One thing I'm really interested in exploring is kind of the mythology of it, because when I was looking into it, I got the idea of, would they see this thing of kind of in a similar perspective like the Norse
Yggdrasil?
Yeah.
The World Tree?
Yes, the World Tree, that's it. Like, do they think that the roots are hell and the top of the trees are heaven or whatever? And I was thinking, is it a that kind of...
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Is it a hierarchy system constructed of height? Like, if you have a... Because we were imagining it like, we were talking about the trees are so massive that you can carve a whole town into like one, like quarter of a side, you know, in these little holes and things like that without ring barking the tree.
Yeah.
And then I'm imagining, like, at least in certain belief systems, certain villages, the dog is snoring now. So sweet.
I'm sorry, sweetie. Wake up. You can't do that.
Oh. Now she doesn't know what to do with herself. Sorry, telling me. Okay, she's just getting comfy now. Yeah. She'll be back to snoring in a few minutes.
Yeah.
The height-based hierarchy. So you have, say, like the leader of this town is higher up in the tree. Like they get a higher position, and it's probably associated with like deities and things like that. Maybe they believe that the deities live atop the trees, or it could be the opposite. You know, maybe they get sources of food from below.
That's true. Maybe they would interpret it a different way, considering they're very practical and earth-based kind of magic system as well. So maybe they think that the energy that comes from the earth, especially because the trees are feeding off of that, maybe that's seen as more of a divine thing than the sky.
Yeah, absolutely. The sky could be the bad thing. That's where
the bright, harsh light is toxic.
Exactly. Or maybe there are airborne creatures that are their enemies. I feel like that could be something interesting.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
Big birds and insects and things like that. Winged creatures.
Yeah. Something else I'm also interested in is how different societies adapt and build their communities depending on what parts of the trees they're on.
Yes.
So if we set up a Discord, I'll put up photos of my inspiration for this, but in the meantime I'll quickly show you.
Oh, you have reference?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Just because I can't describe what I'm thinking of. So you see that kind of ridged bark?
Yes. So like vertical striations in the sides of the bark.
Yeah. I was thinking that there'd be some kind of societies when they don't have the technology or the means to actually dig into the bark.
Because they would be incredibly hard trees, I imagine.
Yeah. They instead build little stacked buildings on the inside of those going up.
Like bridges, like switchback staircases between... Like she has a drawing, of course. Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what I was imagining.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
I imagine it kind of a bit of a Venice vibe, but also very kind of gritty and
so that's an important question. What sort of real world inspirations and what like level of advancement are we looking at exploring? I guess we can look at the whole history. A big inspiration for this podcast is Microscope, which is a very anachronistic game. You can look at it from any part of the history. So what are you most interested in, like a steampunk vibe, or I guess we want fantasy, but like
I think, I don't know, I've got a couple of different ones going for different societies.
Well, that could be interesting. We could have a society that is more advanced and less advanced, and their interactions would be very interesting.
But I think overall we do have a bit of a tone or a theme that we're going to.
Yes.
That we're going for.
Because we want it to be, I think we talked about the setting being sort of bright and homely.
Yeah.
And I think there'll definitely be a lot of stories of like, this is the ideal home, and then they're leaving the ideal home, and the hero's journey arc, and then returning, and things have changed.
And
like
I think high elven society isn't the kind of feel we're going for.
No.
And that's often associated with big ancient forests.
Big tree, big tree, big elf. We're trying to subvert that.
No, I like the idea of really earthy, lots of I picture like little mushroom people.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, races. That's something I hadn't even thought of.
Yeah, right?
Okay, I'm just writing that down.
Just because so I've had like 3 different ideas for society. So we have this kind of cobbled together, shambled one built into that segmented bark.
Yep.
But then I was thinking of another kind of more, I don't know, a bit more developed society. Right. So where they do carve directly into the bark of the trees, and they carve their homes and all their entire towns into the bark of these trees, and they'd be a bit more sophisticated in their architecture.
Yeah.
Just because perhaps they've been around for a bit longer.
They've struck upon some sort of arcane wealth or like magical thing that makes them more capable than other cultures around.
Yeah. And for them, I imagine them being quite homely and quaint. But I picture lots of like white woods and stuff like that, or the streets kind of spiral around the trunk of the tree.
Very structured.
And you'd have all these homes and buildings then carved into the tree, and I imagine because it's a giant forest, it'd be pretty wet, and there'd be plenty of rain and stuff like that. So they'd even have like little canals dug into it, so there'd be constantly water running down the center of the tree.
I was just thinking about. I feel like as a light source, it'd be interesting if there was a way for them to tap into the tree and get like the sap and have these like sap funnels running throughout that are lit with this arcane flame.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I like that.
Like a green flame perhaps or something like that.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Just like a coloured flame, and like I'm seeing this vision of these spirals running down with these pipes of wood carved like. It'll be a very sophisticated process to have to like carve these wooden pipes with little flickering flames all throughout.
Nice. I like that. Yeah, definitely.
I was also thinking of, as you were talking, a pastoral society wherein the farming that they're doing is like sheets of fungus running all along the sides of the trees that are massive. You know, they're like the size of fields that are like curving down, and then like big mushrooms and things, and that's the food source for the whole city.
I picture them like strategically growing mushrooms as awnings above the top of their houses.
Oh, God, that's cool.
Like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like you could have even using different species of fungus and mushroom and stuff for different purposes, like a growing moss as carpets.
Yes.
And stuff like that.
Oh my God. Or like spinning it even, you know.
Yeah. Or what are those really, really thin mushrooms? And enoki?
Sure.
I literally got some news. I'm
go
check
have a
the
look.
name.
You know, it's possible that we'll edit this out, but maybe this is Dylan's special time, where he just talks to the audience, has a nice discussion. You know, we really get to know each other. It's like a special time between you and me, and also later when Alicia is editing this, she'll be able to listen outside of the room. So, future Alicia, nice to talk to you. I'm waiting for current Alicia to get back with some information about mushrooms. Oh, hi.
You know I am going to hear whatever you heard.
I do know that.
Okay. Yes, I was right. They are called enoki.
Enoki
Mushrooms. You could have they're really like tall and thin. My first instinct is to grow them as like fences along these walkways. But I feel like there are plenty of things you could do with them.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, you could use them for like spear shafts or arrow shafts.
Because I think we'll need to look into have other species perhaps adapted to be able to utilize this energy like the trees have. So is there giant fungus? Is there giant... Because these people are still human-sized.
Yes.
They're humanoid-sized. Yeah. They're not tiny people.
I think there'll be like a subset of related plants that are very adaptable. So it's like they come from the same root source. Pun. You know, they have the same common ancestor, but they have mushrooms in there and trees and things like that, and probably sentient creatures as well. Like these defender creatures. I'm sort of imagining that like they're tree guardians or whatever that roam
I have
throughout.
A thing to say about that.
Oh, really?
But I'll get back to it just so I can mention another thing I thought of like having, because I looked up a picture of like close-ups of moss, and they just look like fields of shrubs, and that could be something to work with.
Absolutely. No, absolutely.
I think
that's really
that
cool.
Could be really cool.
I'm imagining like an enormous branch coming out, like a big hillside, it looks like, and it's covered in this moss with people tending it like a field and little fences throughout of these enoki sort of fence posts.
Picture them with like little wide-brimmed hats and stuff.
Which are just mushrooms.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That are on their heads, mushroom toadstools.
So cute.
Yeah. It's such a sweet setting.
I need mushroom cows, just a side note.
That's a Minecraft thing as well, than mushrooms.
It's big at the moment.
Yeah.
So one thing I was really excited to talk about was Dryad.
Yeah.
And I know that's a very D&D thing. Are they a creature that only shows up in D&D?
No, they're from you got dryads and naiads in Greek mythology.
Okay, cool. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that we briefly spoke about that I think would be cool to talk about again was tree stride.
Yeah.
That, at least in D&D, Dryad can walk into one tree and they pretty much teleport out of another, which in this case would be massive.
Yes.
Because...
that's everything.
Yeah, spending the distance between trees would be absolutely huge and very difficult for a normal person to span. So
yeah, you would sort of have this race unhinged by space.
Yes, they could like act as messengers between different civilizations in the forest and stuff like that. But another point that I wanted to talk about that I was more excited about is that Dryad are kind of spawned from a tree. So what if you had a Dryad that spawned from one of these giant trees?
Big Dryad! I love... Oh my gosh. Oh, and then I'm immediately thinking about like a forest on the back of this massive Dryad and like people living there, which is just moving into another setting I made one time where things lived on the back of other things, but still cool.
Yeah, but I imagine giant Dryads walking around acting as guardians of this forest and even watching over different civilizations. And...
There's a sort of... kaiju, like oh, puppy dog, what are you grumpy about? You want to drink my tea?
She wants the tea.
There's none left, sorry.
You can just put it on the ground so she knows.
She's still going to want it.
Yeah.
I'll just leave it there. Okay, going back. There's a sort of kaiju aspect to that I love. Like, I've been thinking about a lot, this sort of balance between, I guess, defenders of nature as these like massive creatures. There's another, talking about Nausicaa again, Nausicaä. They have, like, the forest defends itself by making these insects that fend off people who destroy the forest or kill any of the insects, like mess with the ecology, mess with the purpose of the forest. And I like the idea of these massive dryads as like defenders who are dealing with like huge creatures, and I mean, I don't know what those would be, like dragons or because it's fantasy, like anything, yeah, exactly. But you could even have them as less the defenders of nature, but like more the defenders of humanity or of like people. Like they are the representatives of people in the forest, and then the forest itself makes its own creatures. Like they are the old nature versus this new nature in the new forest. I don't know, it's something to consider.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, we just lost 10 minutes worth of stuff.
Yeah.
Because my laptop is full and we didn't realise.
C'est la vie.
But, I mean, at least no one will know what they're missing out on. So.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even remember, so.
Neither do I.
Yeah.
So the last thing you were saying was about the dryads being guardians and stuff of the trees.
Yes. So,
I think we should just speak about, like, as much as we can, and if we've already spoken about it, I can just keep it together.
As we were saying when we were talking about technical difficulties, like dealing with the technical difficulties, we've covered a lot of, like, lore and nature. We've got these sort of different societies, we've got a couple different features that we can have as conflicts. What do we want to go away now and write for the stories, which people have already heard?
Yes.
What is the tone and theme?
The thing is, we haven't really looked into any specific characters or anything like that. So are we going to focus on an individual? Is it going to be like a retelling of the history of a certain town?
I think a person's life, and I think we will be inclined in this project to write stories that are introductions to the world. And I think we don't need to do that. Yeah. I think that we can try and be succinct and do as much world transference as possible in as few words as we have.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to be writing a story that is a history, an introduction, a whole person's life. I think it's just an interaction, you know.
Okay, nice.
But something like an episode of a show. You know, that's the sort of plot that we want to aim for.
Yeah, gotcha.
Like mid-tier threat level or investment, you know, not low stakes, but like not world-ending sort of stuff. Your like local threat, and very like halcyon, you know, like forlorn and positive and happy. That's sort of the tone that I think would be a nice story.
Okay. Something we chatted about that was deleted was the idea of like pieces of bark falling off that would destroy towns and stuff like that.
It's sort of a concept of the tree defending itself, or of
just a natural process of things happening on trees, and that would have an effect on the people living on those trees.
Exactly.
And I also spoke about the idea of maybe population control might be something that happens in order to make sure they don't trigger those kind of events that could potentially harm their civilization. So perhaps our story will, maybe not directly in the aftermath, because that might be too intense a introductory story. But maybe a few years after that, so people they're kind of settling back into.
It's sort of like a post-trauma or post I want to say disaster. Society that's dealing with stuff like that.
Yeah, and I imagine maybe like half of the town was lost to the forest floor.
Yep. Given back to the earth.
Yeah.
I like. Yeah.
So we could come up with some cool terms that are used for this.
There's a lot of. We talked about the ideology as well. I think that was lost. And if we're repeating ourselves, sorry. Of like the trees, like balance being a huge part of lifestyle and mythology and belief, in that like the trees control. Like if you have too many resources, too many people, things get out of hand, and you lose bark, or you have the dryads coming to defend the tree from being like overused and stuff like that. I think we may have even lost the discussion of and if not, you can just edit this out. Of the advanced like society who uses like the industrial society.
Okay, do you want to recap that?
Well, it was just like the idea of a society that uses like the sap and the fruits and stuff like that to make like war machines. But I think, they don't have access to metal, so war machines is not the right word. But like some sort of advanced structures.
Like kind of a golem that's powered by this.
That's very cool. Yes, because we were talking about taking the druid. I did it again. The dryad blood, and fueling spells like powerful magic through blood magic, and they've like corrupted the heart of their tree. So instead of having the green leaves, it has like red sap, blood red leaves, and like this crimson or white fire. When you light the sap, and that's like one of the forces that is a conflict in this world. Along with the non-Euclidean space, like the strange endless trees, the infinite, the areas of infinite trees.
That reminded me of another thing that I think we lost. The idea of, are there oceans?
Yes. Good. Like, and I think that fits into a larger area of like. It's not just a forest biome. You can sort of like slot in all of these different, like it does, in an infinite space or like an endless space. You can have anything possible, and so like what we're talking about is an ocean, like a massive like baobab tree or an empty like dead tree that has stored water over hundreds of years and is now an ocean. And like they have docks and things that people live in.
Yeah, nice. And like branches of old big trees that have been carved out to make rivers flowing all over the place.
So cool. But back to the tone of the stories, I think like a new arrival story is a good one to tell. Like we have this culture that is like left behind, after a disaster, and then there is a group, maybe a refugee group, and like conflict about that.
Here's another thing that was lost. You mentioned in the idea of overpopulation and stuff, maybe one of the ways they got rid of excess people, was to exile them. So maybe a group of these exiles.
These nomadic exiles. And I think when I was just about to say, when we lost it, that an idea of them using like a magic as like a transportation system, like I immediately had this idea of like a caravan driven by insects or something, massive insects, and then they have like these magical vines that are like grappling hooks that let them like move between the trees and like across branches and stuff like that when they can't get across easily, and they like make bridges like that. And swing between the trees, and it's just like these nomadic bands.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, so maybe you have the nomads arrive and something like that.
Yeah, no, I like that idea of this group of exiles showing up to this.
But it may not even be the exiles. I think an arrival story is a good one to tell. It could be a war band from the advanced place. It could be from the industrial place. It could be a group of traders from the advanced structured society.
Yeah.
Or I've just assumed that we're setting it in the either the rickety Venetian place or the pastoral place.
Yeah, me too. They seem to be the main ones we're focusing on.
They're good ones to start with.
Yeah, they're solid aesthetics.
Yes.
I could even be one of these like messenger dryads coming to one of the places.
Bringing news of something big, something change. But I think that's most of what we need to cover.
I think this is a solid basis. I think we can... I mean, there are definitely lots of other things we can cover in this world. I think
a huge setting, yeah.
when you've got an environment that's this big, there are different environments and ecosystems that can fit within that bigger one, and that gives us so many different things we can explore. Different civilizations, and even what the rest of this world looks like. Different characters in it. But I think this is a good basis for our first story. Hopefully it was
I'm so
good.
excited. It's fantastic. I'm sure. I'm so excited to see what we do with it.
Yeah, me too.